Let's start the party.
Absolutely. Like it never ends, and that it is. Welcome, welcome, welcome,
Party
everybody,
like it's
once again.
party like it's
Thank
1999.
1999, indeed. Thank you again, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of this. As usual, we are here for our how-to sessions, um, 12 p.m. Eastern Time every week. We'll try to make it uh, always happening event. My name is Virgil Obio. Thank you for those who are new joining in this space. I'm your marketing consultant, or will be your marketing consultant or brand manager, brand success manager for the day. I'm joined with my co-host, Robert. You can introduce yourself. That's your cue.
Hi there, my name is Robert.
Also known as the Blakester, right? It's our specialist in the ground. He's also the one taking care of the conversation that is happening in the chat. So if at any point in time you have questions, you can either raise your hand or bring you in for the share, or you can ask directly in the chat and it basically will get answered some way or another. Everything that we do, I document on a series of links that I'll be sharing into the conversation chat at one point or another. And for today, let's get started. In good tradition, we'll start with any now site question since most of us here are using the now site or is considering using the now site tool. So we can start with question on that. And if there's any, we'll segue into the next part of our presentation or the continuation of the conversation that we've been having. So anybody has any specific question beyond what we're discussing on the use of now site that they would have want an answer on or share a comment on? Or any other questions so far on what we've been discussing and how it also applies? Okay. So at any point in time, anyways, during the conversation, you can time in with these questions. And for now, what I'll do is I'll continue on what we were discussing yesterday. Yesterday, we went over the conversation around exercise that I hope everybody is trying to take part into or will be taking part into. The idea of creating or putting together all these attributes as these defining things around our brand identity in this brand identity booklet. And this basic exercise would allow you to do so. We ended up with an opening on a conversation around the shapes, color shapes, I would say, and their meanings or their impact or their implication in approaching the logo. George had a great conversation, great questions around which we elaborated on what happens when I have one brand and I have or will be creating multiple products. What happens then? And the solution offered was, well, it has to start somewhere. The umbrella brand, since everything that follows will be a product of, a derivative of, or something that correlate to that umbrella brand, right? And in the midst of that conversation, I would want to come back on certain key points and how they impact and will keep on impacting our our marketing and our branding, right? So, for example, the two-line rationale was a question that I asked George to elaborate on for each one of his products. And through that discussion, we realized that we were still in the same industry, health, wellness, right? Whether he chose to make it George Health Consultant or Health Wellness Solution would become part of that brainstorming around the potential name, right? So all these key points are important because in the end, they will become the vehicle of the first connection, right? What exactly did I feel when I first saw this brand or heard about this brand name or came into contact with this conversation? And this is important. And how does shape factors into all that is what I will try to leave you with a mind frame so that you start looking at logos differently. We have the tendency when we start uh, understanding what or approaching the creation of logo is to start throwing together a lot of symbols, right? We understand that through this uh, uh, conversation that we're creating by adding all these bits and pieces of image or train of thoughts, right? Together, we are trying to build a whole conversation, something that should fall in line with this rationale, right? One of the things that we often forget or we often lose sight of is these basic forms, right? The triangle, the square, the circle. We all recognize these signs, and they all symbolize something specific in certain situations. They all have foundational values, right? When we're using them, it would be good to understand what they do and how they correlate to everything, right? So this is what I want to be discussing with you here. And I'm going to be going through this discussion at the same time presenting a step-by-step approach at following basically this exercise and how often you will be coming back to that mechanic when doing so. While I talk about shapes, squares, triangles, and whatnot. Good for everybody for now? Questions? Perfect. You'll notice also, go ahead.
I I had some free time, so I threw
Uh-huh.
them together. I put it in the chat if you want to pull it up and take a look at it.
Let me take a look at it.
I like the way it came out. It's basic, but it's for the logo and logo, brand colors, fonts.
It's the PDF document there.
Correct, correct.
I can pull that up there. I like what you did. Let me share that. I'm actually going to use it also as part of the conversation. Let me see here. Oh, actually,
All right.
this
I do a
actually
good job.
great. Perfect. We all are seeing this.
I see it.
Yep. Perfect. So we open up. Oh, let me just maybe um, down a little bit. So we're looking at your brand identity booklet, if I understand correctly. Taking a
Yes.
second in between. Perfect. So this is a great example of what you want to create coming out of this exercise and keep and refer to. This is now an asset, for example, for a presentation in case like that. It's beautiful. So we have Robert, his logo, which we're going to be discussing. Second slide, we have who he is. Okay. What do we do? The brand identity, the color palettes, and the slogan, right? And this is great because if ever you have to contract somebody for work, you have it. If yourself, you have to come back in this space to discuss what or to remind you of what were your core value, just in case you forget your core value. And this is something that should never happen, forgetting your core values, right? Just in case, or they change or they shift, realizing something deeper, right? This is where you will come back. So this is a great example of what you should be all having together with that scorecard. See how many tools you're now left to yourself evaluate, reevaluate your brand as you go. Moreover, a strategy to follow, right? I love it. Now, actually, we're going to talk about this as well. Because here, for example, this is a practical application of what I wanted to discuss today around the triangle, the square, and the circle. I heard it once. I'm not sure where it is I heard it, but it's been a driving point in my creation when I approached the logo. It was, oh, okay, the way it was phrased is that a logo is never complete until it's put into a frame, right? Just like a picture, right? So we would have thought that the Robert R, the B, would have been enough, right? But by adding the circle, there's now a certain emotion that comes into play here, right? And this is the things that we want to start making you consider and hopefully start looking at logos directly. This is a perfect application also to begin with because we see the first part of the exercise. We started with his name. He started with his name, Robert, right? And then from there, in terms of logo, we're going to jump through the five attributes conversation in this case and stay in the logo. What happened is that from here, he pulled out his initials and that became the core of his branding, adding his colors for emotion and then to balance out that square, right? And this is something that we can all practically go through. And when we understand a little bit more the value of each one of those, it starts giving us a little bit more of a framework as architects to design, right? We all know what the triangle or we have an idea of what the triangle tends to represent, right? There's an idea of structure, there's an idea of power distribution, there's an idea of action, right? It also has its numerical value and its color, right? So we have, for example, the idea of three, setting things in motion. So if your brain is about that, innovation, things in motion, then that should start ringing, right? The red, the yellow, the orange, these type of suggestions. Go ahead, Robert.
I don't know if you notice or not, but the B is actually fashioned in the number three.
Sorry?
The B in my initials is
Oh,
fashioned
yeah, sorry.
for the number three.
Okay, no, I didn't notice.
Yeah, because
I
I'll give
didn't
you at
notice.
least three
Yeah, no, no, I
times
see.
your
I see here,
results.
going back now, here, that three. Yes, you see that correlation right there, right? And same thing with the circle. It has its value as well, right? Balance, rationale. Look at the number four, right? Four, balance, pillars. When we think about pillars, we usually think in numbers of two or four, right? Balance. Of course, we can have three pillars, we can have six pillars, we can have nine pillars, whatever amount of pillars our strategy will be founded on or our values will be anchored on. But in the end, or in the beginning, when we think pillar, we usually think about just two supporting pairs of pillars, right? In the basics things. Then we go into four and more paired numbers. Colors are suggested as well when we think about the square or the rectangular, right? Same thing with the circle, right? The circle has that ability of being one or many, right? It has that ability, that affinity with the sun, the moon, but the idea of community as well, wholeness, right? And the colors will come into play, right? So this is important to take a look at. And in simple mechanics, I'll show you again how this applies across the pattern or across the board. Using this time, I'll using my name and using a little bit of succession of different approach to show you, right? Here, you all recognize this. This is my current logo, and you can already see that as it is, it's framed into a square. The square is not visible. I haven't added it, but you can see the square nature of this logo coming through, right? But this is not what I'm going to be discussing. This, as I put forward in the past, has went through a few changes before ending in this simple format, and there's a reason why. But what I want to focus on is this step-by-step process, right? So we start out with my name. I'll use myself as an example. One of the things that I also came to understand when you're trying to go from your name to a label or a logo, the first thing that you will tend to do is remove the repetitions, okay, or focus on these main first letters, right? So I started with VO in this case. Now, putting the idea of color and shape in perspective, if I stop at this, you see that there's a certain emotion that comes through with the way this is arranged, right? And this is the triangle. There's this idea of, hey, there's something here that you need to pay attention, or there's a red flag that will dictate your next step, right? Things like that. Same thing with the square. If I arrange it like that, switching with the first suggested color, again, new type of emotion, just one or two basic changes. Same thing again if I decide to switch it to a plain green, right? So you can see that the weight of the circles, in this case, I'm using it to frame a basic logo, and I'm not getting into calligraphy. We will maybe touch a little bit on it during this branding logo conversation, but I rather we keep the idea of font or calligraphy or anything around that when we come back and discuss this applied to our communication strategy on our websites or our email, right? I'm not very fond of that. So most likely I'll be timing in with Robert to build this conversation and presentation before we deliver it. But this is where really that choice takes all its weight. Because, for example, if you're sending out an email and you want it to be considered a newsletter, then the choice of font in the title between Poppins and Time New Romans, yeah, will make a difference, right? The colors in the way you adjust your title, okay, will also make a big impact. So that's going to require a whole hour, 2 hour, 3 hour conversation because it can go in so many directions. So we will save that. Here I'm sticking to really the simple format of letters, right? And you see what it can do. One of the things, for example, that I myself did, because I didn't start with the IMI as a brand. My interest was first in fashion, and I didn't know what I was going to be doing in fashion. So when I started this exercise, I knew that this was a way of branding myself for anything in the future that I would want to do. And this applied to the conversations of starting out with one logo, but having it now echo through a set of other tiers of products or applied interest, right? And you can see same thing. Even with your name, you can do these different brainstorming. Does it sound better when I write? Does it look better when I write it completely? When I use the first letters, when I shift it, when I elaborate on or try different things to it, right? In the end, I settled for this, or VRG, the first letter of my family name, and Verge, which is commonly used to give to shorten Virgil, right? One thing I did, and this is important at this stage that you do test that. When I was doing this, I went directly to Google and I tried. I wanted to know who was in this branding space with me, because this is important. For example, when we start thinking about that SEO, search engine optimization, memorability, right? And scalability. These are simple things that we should be doing. Whatever we end up at the end of our brainstorm as being our choice, well, let's test it in the world to see first, okay, who are you in this space with, right? Who is close to you? Okay. They always have been the top of the search. This brand here. For at one point, I was disputing this space with Ohio, Virginia Roller Girls. So it was a roller club, right? But it was OVRG, right? And in the end, since this was initially for fashion and creating product, and the idea also that this logo had to be something that I could share online or share on a t-shirt and make people proud of wearing it without wearing me directly. So I settled with this name, right? And you can see that I'm fairly good in that space, right? So keep in mind, this is a simple trick. When you decide in the end, what are you going to be doing? Test it. Now, you see what that happened. I had roller girls in this space with me. I had a tech firm with glasses in this space with me, right? How do I stand out? How do I stand out? First, what does this mean for me? And that comes back to that, okay, well, audience, target, value, two-line rationale, right? In the end, I branded this for an audience that would be my peers in the way I approach life, meaning that with this interest in values that allow you to grow, right? In people that uh, age bracket, which is still large, from 18 to 45 people that were generating or in the position of generating their income and had that inclination with the audience on a larger scale. I started this when there was this whole anti-brand movement, when people were like, no to logos and big companies. And I was like, damn, I was just starting to get this together. And the only thing I got is a logo. I need that logo out there, right? So what happens? People are fighting against brand and brand corporate mentality. So I needed something that would adhere to certain set of values, the values that they were defending, and also the value that I were defending, right? So this is what I came up with. And these are my core values. I'm observant of things I like. I'm observant of people's feeling. I'm observant of things that are fundamentally anchored to drive or to create success, right? Virtues, right? If you don't have virtues in life, you're like a leaf in the wind, right? Reason. Everything you do has to follow certain logic, right? And glory, not in the way of wearing the crown, which is great, but glory is for me divine. Perfection is divine, right? And to create that connection or to chase that achievement is to chase that meaning, right? It forces you to be more open, not closed to other people. If you want to be the head of a community or wear that entitlement, right? So these were my core values. And I thought about them and I put them into my name. Hence the habit of turning things into acronyms, right? Which are strong ways of creating reminders, right? My two-line rationale, as I explained it, observance and virtue and reason lead to glory. And after hours of playing around with triangles, squares, and circles, this is what I got, right? Most people have two reactions to this. If I haven't explained it, they were like, what is this? The curiosity, right? Other people are like, hey, this is G, man. Can I rock it? Like, yes, I love this reaction because I can put it on a t-shirt and you'll wear it because you don't see my name in this. You sense maybe the value, right? And if you look really closely between these lines, you'll see that it's created within this framework. And the foundational values are the O, Obio, the V, Virgil, manifested in the OV, right? So from all that little step-by-step approach, this came about. And I was really picky about drawing, about calligraphy, so I actually draw these lines. Go ahead.
I just had to make a quick joke and say that's some crazy cool sorcery right there.
Well,
I like that. I like the way that you came about that. And yes, I'm glad that you explained that process because once I saw it, I was that guy that was like, huh? What the heck is that? So I love that you walked us
I
through.
love
It's
I love even
awesome.
the reference that you did because coming back to why this is and not this in marketing, well, I make image. It's the I that makes the image. It's I that makes the image. It's I as a mage that plays around with the perspection of illusion,
Right.
right? That was that conversation. Here, for example, there's a little bit of duality as well because all this came about after all this journey
Yeah.
happen, right? All this taking it to the ground and trying and seeing and understanding that, well, I'm trying to create effects without touching people, without push, right?
I
So it
love
was like, okay, well, this is the art of illusion.
right.
This marketing is the art. And marketing is often placed right there on the same shelf. Marketing is the art of illusion.
There was a couple of comments in the chat while you were going through those that I love. Dorea said the red triangle says warning. I had to respond, red triangle draws the eyeballs from the
Mhm.
psychological perspective. And of course, as you mentioned, we could have hour long or more conversation about colors. That's like day one of our boot camp. And then she had mentioned, she said the green one looked like a face, someone who looked lost.
I'll say for example, putting, and this is great because remember, shapes have different impacts on people.
Yep.
And often enough, they relate it using their experience, right? Um,
Logical.
yeah, exactly. If just not to call out the real, just not to use it. Well, here, from what I know of you, Doria, you're very structured because you have a background in a very structured environment, right? And in that background, red is often where you should not go. Warning. For those who are drivers, right? Same thing. When you see a red triangle, it means that there's something happening on the road, right? Red is always where there is a warning sign. But red is also the color of love, right? Red is also the color of passion.
But as I mentioned, the triangle itself, though, will draw the eyes in
Mhm.
to a focal point.
Absolutely. Right? On that as well. So when you're looking at your logos or when you're looking at these steps at creating your logos, keep it in that mind frame. At least by being simply rooted, you can see the evolution and you can also see when you're getting too complex. Because honestly, this got to be complex at one point, even though it was really simple, got to be complex. Right? Uh, derivative. Okay. One of the things here is that this was the most important thing, or more important takeaway that I wanted. And if you follow what I do, whenever I do something that correlates to this brand or the fact that I can merchandise the next step, you'll see me basically applying this
I
to
have
the
a question
products.
for you.
Go ahead.
Go back up to what we were looking at and doing your logo there. That one.
This one here.
Yeah. So can you explain for us what is the stuff that's in between the cool little possibly an L or S, maybe looks like
Okay.
L and
On
then a G or a Pac-Man or whatever that is.
exactly that. I'll show you. Basically, what I did here is just write letters. So if you go from this line, you'll see that you have the shape of a reverse R. It's a reverse R. And if you look at this reverse G or this G Pac-Man, then you have our G. Basically, it's the O, V, R, and the G. Right? And the rest was playing with
Love it.
dead zones and uh, live zones to create these different type of center interest, right? And in truth, that's what I wanted to happen. I wanted people to really look at the middle here and try to decipher what is happening, right? And hopefully keep them into that creative exercise or thinking exercise, right?
Oh, Virgil, I gotta stop
Mhm.
with this one. Doria said I would never correlate red with love. I may need a therapist.
With blood,
That's pretty funny right there.
Well, when you did the
Mhm.
shapes and the colors, I would when you said the
Listen here.
red, represents love and passion, I would have never got that from it. So I
No,
I need to make a phone call, call a friend or something.
come on. Valentine, red all over. Passion in Christmas, everything goes red. It's the spirit of joy, right? Okay, yes, horror movie, gore, red takes on a different meaning, right? Emergency room, right? Green and red. This is, for example, why they tend to wear these pastel uh, green-like colors in uh, in the emergency room so that the blood, I think, can reflect on it. So, yeah, depends on it takes on a different impact. And this is also why when you're designing your logo, when you're putting together symbols, you want to keep it as simple as possible so that everybody can relate to it as much as possible on the same frequency or same frequency or same tune. Okay, this is important. For the rest, I didn't cover the conversation around choosing animals, totem animals, but this is also good, right? If, for example, you want to use your name, but instead of using a logo frame around letters around your name, you want to bring an element. Choose one for its meaning and make sure that meaning is as close to your core value than anything, right? For example, in this case, I was building around the bee. Why? Because from my ancestry, or I would say in my tribe, we value the bees as being our totem animal because of what they do and how they operate, and also the fact that my tribe is matriarchal. So women have a big place and a big value therein, right? So I was playing around that, but it also has the idea, if you come back to this conversation, these core values are here, right? That structure of the beehive, the fact that they don't, there's no conflict of politics. You do what you're supposed to for everything, and everything is done in that purpose and reason, right? And the structure itself that they create, the honey that they create has application that are not only nurturing, but also health and wellness related, cosmetics or otherwise, right? So, same thing, different application of the conversation, but the essence of it is still here. In the end, for example, in my case, I chose to go with the elephant beyond this. Why? Because it has a bigger meaning to my country as a whole. And the elephant also has a noticeable presence across all cultures and across the world, right? In China, Thailand, even in the States, I think it's a Democratic Party that has the elephant there. So it's kind of represented a little bit everywhere. I added the wings for the element of elevation, and of course the crown for everything that stands behind royalty and what basically falls in line again with these values, right? Believing that people should behave. It's not about you're not rich because you have a lot of money. You're rich because there's a lot of wealth in your person, right? People can gain from it. And by gaining from it, you also will gain in return, right? You're not at least that's my understanding of royalty. You're not the king so people can serve you. You're the king because you spend your time serving them. And every decision has that weight. You are the last to eat, right? And the first to get up type deal. That's the proper boss, right? You're the last to eat. Is everybody seated? Are the arrangements made? Everybody's happy? Okay, great. Now I can. And in the morning, you got to get up and say that, okay, everybody's getting up to get the work done. And right. So that's really the polarity of it. And that is what basically I hold as value and try to communicate here. So again, very simple exercise, but it can get very deeply complicated if you choose to in the process, depending on that rationale that you're pursuing. And you yourself will start understanding. And these are limitations that are there not to work against us, but to make sure that we're following the right tracks, right? Because just like the conversation on the websites pertaining to offers, and by the way, I forgot to show you this, or I should have. How does that impact the digital card, right? For those, for example, who don't have pictures, here I have yet to update my pictures and stuff. Took a few gray hairs since I did that, right? But for those who don't have updated pictures, well, your logo can come into play, right? This is important also. Just going to review it here. So you see, using the same logo, change the name, had to adjust a little bit the subtitle, but the conversation remains the same in the first person. Why? Because I make image. It is in the branding to try to create that correlation. Who do I make image for? For you, content. That's my service, right? So, boom. So you can see that this simple exercise is important and has direct application for all of us. If you don't want to have your face on your digital card, if you want to represent your brand in a way that is faceless and that you can shift around different interests, then that is a solution here. And it's not really complicated to do so. The complicated part would be if you start diving again into fonts, which is important. If you feel like before, because in the end, for example, you'll notice one thing. Let me go back to a lot of, if in this case here, I'm going to be using, oops, the Canva template just as a source of inspiration to show you what they offer. And you'll notice that a lot of what we discuss basically will start manifesting there. 1 second here. Grab this. Go ahead, Robert.
While you're looking for that, I love what Dorea said in the chat there. She said,
Mhm.
"Oh, I may use the B concept for the women's veterans group that she's with." She's like, "Oh, wee!" She's excited.
Oh,
So
there you go.
awesome, awesome. Aren't you glad you
Yeah,
stopped by?
what is that?
Yeah, I love it because we women we're powerful, we're useful, we're resourceful, but we'll sting you, baby. We need to. We're still warriors. So yeah, I love, 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 love that concept. Thank you for that.
I love what you just said. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know if it's because of my heritage, but I found that yes, there's a lot of power in women that is required at any step of society. Even more so, for example, when you're trying to create things, right? I found that, and this is from my personal experience trying to build or bring teams together. I found that I'm trying to do something here. 1 second. I found that when we were just a bunch of guys on the team, there was a certain synergy to that interaction that was not necessarily always balanced. When we had a female energy on the team or women's energy on the team, then things would structure differently, right? And I
Totally
found
good.
that it works also in both ways. I integrated teams that were all women, and either one took on that authoritative presence and balanced the emotion of the group with logic, or there was a lot of back and forth and the work couldn't get done, right? So often enough, if I was there, I would have to step in and say, no, structure, this doesn't work, this is balance, this is emotional, this doesn't apply in the business realm, right? And stuff like that. So through experience, I found that, yeah, you need a good blend of both. Just like last time we covered that yin and yang, or balancing, or knowing when to balance opposites, past and present, in your presentation of your own expertise, right? And here, for example, coming back to what I wanted to say, you'll notice that a lot of logos are simply built around letters and font, right? So for those who want to spend time with font, you can take a look at it. It's about making a connection with that font and making sure that that connection also follows through your core values, right? And you'll notice that these are all different examples that can be things that you use, right? So keep that in mind when you're designing your logo. It's not because you're doing or you're starting out with something that is simple that you're stuck or you're not powerful. On the contrary, when you start with simple things, you tend to have a lot of power into what you are doing because you're forced to drive in a lot more energy. Go ahead.
So speaking of energy, it's funny too. I love this show. We're having a great time and learning so many things. We're gonna start taking a poll in here because Rito's like, "How old is Virgil? 150?" I said, "Take a guess."
Oh my God.
We're gonna take a guess with all that knowledge. They think you're 150 years old, bro.
You guys are trying to build the history of the puzzle together. I won't say. You guys will guess.
Yeah.
We'll make it well, if I have I well, you can get a good idea if you're
I thought you were going to say, have you mentioned it? And I said, you and I talked about it the other day, but I've never heard you mention it live on the air.
no, I never. I'm not shy, but I'm not ashamed or shy of it, but I'll let you guess. I'll keep the mystery going at least. So you guys guess. I only have one. I won't answer today. I'll keep that answer and let you guys maybe keep guessing until I say, okay, somebody got it. I have to comply to, yes, I own it.
And Dinah's like, How old are you? Come on."
No, 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 no,
It
no.
says
I'm
36.
not.
Go.
You're gonna have to wow me with your design, and I'll give you the book of me. I'll answer all the questions.
There you go.
Okay. So, ooh, what is that? Let me see this here. Let's talk about this logo. I see this. 52. Wow. You're getting hotter. Oh.
Hey, there's Dr. Lisa dropped in a pretty nice looking logo as well.
Hmm.
It's Queen Monica. I don't know if you see that.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. With the
Pretty
beat.
cool indeed. Here is what was shared. I love this. So we have the queen on the throne, Manuka, honey secrets. It's a guide as well. I like it. Oh,
A lot of people call it Manuka honey.
Manuka
It's
honey.
it's all the rage, but it's from New Zealand, and people in New Zealand call it Manuka honey. And so I named her Queen Monica, so it would remind me to pronounce the name Manuka the way they pronounce it in New Zealand. Oh,
Manuka. Wow.
I was
but
like
Is this
potato, potato.
everyone will correct you and say, "Oh, it's Manuka." Like, okay,
The whole potato potato thing.
yeah, internationally.
Can you describe for us the thought process? Is this their logo as they are offering it, or something that you designed for
No,
them
I
in that?
designed this. I designed
Can you
this.
give us your thought process around that? That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
Well, I created a lead magnet, which is this ebook about Monica honey, which is the prime ingredient in one of our new products. And
Wow.
I just wanted her to be royal, and so I went to what do you call it, Bing first,
Mhm.
and I just started uh, asking for queen bees, and I got an idea and I put that into Ideogram, and then Ideogram gave me a great prompt, and I worked on the prompt, and uh, I don't even remember the last. I don't remember what the
Okay.
final output, but um, the final AI image that was given to me had words that were completely misspelled. And so I put it into Canva and did a text grab and had to find the fonts and, make the arcs and things like that. But so it was a process, but I really
Mhm.
wanted to uh, highlight the bee as royalty.
Absolutely.
Great job. And
And
what I love about that is she found a way to get her done. Right?
absolutely,
Like she
right?
had this tool, that tool. She found a way. I love that. I love it.
Thank
I like the end result as well. The fact that you wanted that structure and that nurturing part in, right? Because you have that idea of, well, these are secrets, these are wellness secrets, right? That we are offering here. So you wanted that idea of structure, but also that idea of nurturing, right? Gold is always a great color for what I see here. And the bee is not threatening, right? Because just a moment ago we said the bee sting, but this one has a smile on her face and we don't see the sting. So reinforcement on that nurturing or welcoming nature of this. So it speaks a lot, right? Speaks a lot.
Yeah,
Keep it in reference.
there were a lot of different feelings and of the what the throne room looked like, but I started with the idea of the honeycomb, but
Mhm.
it just morphed into this. So
I
Mhm.
love it.
thank you. I
Well,
had to share it when I saw your bee.
I'll tell you honestly,
mhm.
Dr. Lisa, that to me is like, even though you don't think that, or you maybe wouldn't consider yourself professional, but that to me is something that stands out as like a super professional logo. I could see that on, on actual products of honey or something in your shelves on the store. Like it's that good.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I love the
That's
blues saying that you can be trusted, the information is
mhm.
trustworthy. I love, the royalty, and you got that little red in there, so there's some love in there.
Mhm. And
But
it's
it's very
also in
thoughtful, very good.
yeah. And it's also in line with what we previously saw from Lisa, the choice of color in her on her digital card, which is echoing. So if this ended up on that card, it wouldn't create a negative ripple effect. We wouldn't have to adjust anything. Right? And if you saw her card and see this in her space, you would understand, okay, this is that nurturing or wellness conversation that continues, right? So continuation into the same values through colors, right? And yes, when I saw this, right, one of the things that first jumped to mind is this is a perfect product label, right? It basically has that product uh, uh, spirit nailed in. And definitely, if you put it on the black bottle, it's gonna shine something very nicely, right? Um, Logo for a driving brand, uh, I would say maybe try to simplify it for a simple reason. For example, when you're scaling your logos, and this is one of the things, for example, where we would have that feeling. I did so well, and now I'm trying to use this logo as the, where is it? The image con that Now Site offers there. which is usually what happens, right? These logos, let me go back to one of those or that I have. These logos are what you are also going to try to end up using as favicons, right? Oh, I was the first one. Just open it here. So when you're trying to do this here or trying to put it at the end of your website footer, often enough, this is when that idea of scalability comes into play. What happens basically when this is reduced in this format? Then the logo, because of all those details, will lose all its power. And then you're like, oh, I worked so hard for this, right? So keep that in mind also. And to be able, with a choice as we did for this product, why is it that it's not showing? For a choice as you did for this product is great, but you're now locked into this product, right? If this was an umbrella brand, then you would have to be careful because then you would only be talking about honey from this point on because you're locked in, right? So be careful with that. Also think about scalability because here, for example, you see you can still get that same power. Let me try with your, and we'll see what we end up with in terms of scale when this is scaled down. So keep that in mind, of course. It was not the whole logo that was meant to be. So I'm just no disrespect to your work. I'm just gonna truncate a little bit
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
to try to see what would end up because this is now the focus, right? And let's see what happens. Oh, let's zoom back a little bit. So keep that in mind because now you see it melted into the whole confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, not confusion, but the whole conversation that your color had, right? When it was big, wow. Now that it's small, it's like, okay, there's things happening there, right? And it's even taking on a different turn here. I'm not sure visually certain things, dead zone, live zone will give me certain things here. And you can see here that I have sort of like a mask affair going on when I'm afar, right? You got some eyes, you got some smile here. So the nature that when you scale it down, it goes somewhere differently. Same thing, for example, when you're gonna be maybe thinking about what would happen if I'm in the position of creating an app and that logo has to be on that app button on your phone. Scalability, same problem. Okay, so be careful with those factors. It's one of the brand attributes, right? It has to be scalable. And that means also in that aspect, what happens when I want to go from one market to the other? Does this logo allow me to carry over, or will I be forced to adapt it again or create a new one? How long can this carry me? That's that scalability. But then when I reduce it to the smallest, or when I scale it to the biggest, does it convey the same information? Does it follows into the reduction and doesn't fall into distortion? Make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so keep that in mind. This is why, again, simplicity is the mother of all things, even the complex one. A complex situation is just a bunch of simple things that accumulated, right? A complex problem doesn't happen in a vacuum. Something started, wasn't addressed, there was a crack in the wall, or there was a hole in the wall in the dam. Somebody didn't fix it. They tried to patch it and then moved on to another thing, and that created another. And now we're in this complex array of cause and effect that we have to reverse engineer, right? And then, well, like, oh, the problem was simple. This guy didn't close the valve here, and then everything went amok in the system, right? Worse when you're doing coding. The guy put a comma where he didn't have to. Oh, wow. Okay. The totem animals are coming in. I love it. I love it. I love it. Real-time application. Oh man. Let's go to that. And I'm even gonna, oh yeah, you're giving me fuel for fire here. I love that. Give me just 1 second. Where are you?
That's what I'm
Yeah.
here for, brother. That's what I'm here for.
Uh-huh. And I love that hot trigger. People are pulling the trigger, like, yeah, we're receiving what you're saying. This is what we get. Look at this, right? From just the square with the RB, we now have the totem animal into play, the chameleon. And look how much joy it brings in now. We didn't see that part of you, or we didn't feel that part of you in the previous conversation. The Blakester has that iconic connotation with the Riddler, the jokester, the joyful guy, right? And we didn't see that before. Now we're getting that into play. Well, there's this chameleon. He's smiling, right? He's cool. Chameleon are cool. They can blend in, right? They're the odd lizard that is not like, ooh, there's a lizard there, right? I had friends that had these iguanas as friend. I'm like, nah, I'm not getting close to that thing. It's just it has spikes. But the chameleon's like, yeah, okay, let me see if it changes colors, right? Look at the eyes. The oddity of it makes it cute, right? And now it has a smile. Love it. And that is also something that falls into the psychology of it. You have to be able to be of many shapes to understand others and how they also work.
Yeah,
Somebody's giving you another one?
I never thought about putting a totem animal in there. That's why I love these things and how we can come together and teach these things and draw from each other and learn from each other because I always learn just the easiest way, which is one thing that we already applied and talked about, which is typically going to be your first and last name, the initials, the fonts, the colors, right? You went a lot deeper with circles, triangles, and squares.